We will continue the community and species interaction. So previous lecture we discussed about the symbiotic association or symbiotic interaction. So today we are going to discuss about the next species interaction, competition. Competition is a relationship between organisms in which one is harmed when both are trying to use the same resources related to growth, reproduction, or survivability. The competition stems from the fact that resources are limited. So most of the time, if the resources are not available for the species, so they are competing to each other. So there are simply not enough some resources for all individuals to have equal access and supply. Competition can occur between organisms of the same species or between species of different species. So when you look at this picture, you will be able to see in a savanna ecosystem, they have a problem with water. So they have very limited amount of water available for all species. So therefore, they are struggling for searching water. So therefore, they are competing for these resources. And when you go to a forest, huge forest, you will be able to see some trees are very tall. Some trees are under that tree. So, but they are growing towards the light. So therefore, in a forest, they are competing for light. And when you look at this picture, you will be able to see they are struggling for different type of resources. Competition between species can either lead to the extinction of one of the species or a decline in both of the species. Now, when they are competing each other, I think they are competing for common resources. At that time, one species is winning. So then that particular species can live. But the failed species, they are losing the resources. So that species actually extinct. So this interaction is supporting for the evolution. So sometimes this interaction interrupt by the environmental disturbances. So this is actually a game. The competition is often involved when species are limited in their range, often by direct competition from other organisms. So this is one example. You can see here the mammoth. They are actually large animals. They need more resources. So environment change the situation. Some people actually encroach their environment, and then they lack of resources, they extinct. And then you can see another example, because of our human activity, global warming happened. So therefore, most of the polar region animals are under threat. And because of these organisms, competition, organisms will not be able to occupy their fundamental niche, because the fundamental niche, they need a large space. But when they are together, they are restricted to one particular niche. So when you look at this picture, you can see the Semibalanus and the Chithamallus. The Semibalanus niche is actually fundamental niche is very high, very large. But in Chithamallus, one is actually very short and very small. So therefore, when they are together, so they are occupied only the favorable conditions. So therefore, nicely they are surviving. So most of the time when the competition occurs, you can see only the realized niche. And this is actually supporting for the co-evaluation process. So co-evaluation is a term that describes the long-term evolutionary adjustment of species to one another. So there are two interactions. One is the predation, the other one is the symbiosis. Predation we will discuss later. Actually, in the predation, one animal capture, kills and eat another animal. Symbiosis is condition. They are closely associated together. You can remember we discussed about three types of symbiosis: mutualism, parasitism, and the commensalism. And you can see in the picture here, this is actually commensalism, hummingbird and the flower. And then here you can see the brood parasite. And then this is the predation. This is the commensalism. And selective pressure will serve strongest when there is a close ecological relationship. A close ecological relationship may be specialist rather than generalist. So specialists mean they have a smaller niche, and generalists they have the broader niche. So you can see the important ecological relationship that give rise to the co-evaluation: the predators and prey, parasite and host, the mutualists and the competitors. And when we move to the our activity, so the number 11 is discuss how species competition support for the species interaction. Elaborate your answer using inter and intra-species competition. So here, intra-species and interspecies, both the mutual use of limited resources by population of two or more species. So they are struggling for the same resources. So each individual adversely affect another in the quest for food, that nutrition, living space, mates, or other common needs. When individuals harm one another, is attempting to gain the resources. Abundance of both is greater when alone than when together. So actually, so competition is supporting to share the resources. So when you come to the two category of competition, the same species and different species competition. Same species we call the interspecific. Different species call, same species we call intraspecific. Different species we call interspecific. When we come to the interspecific, that is competition between members of different species. As you know, in the nature, there are different species are surviving. When you move to the intra-specific competition among members of the same species, often intense due to same species and nutritional requirements. So how they are overcoming this problem? So they have their own territory. So territory means the organisms defend a specific area containing resources primarily against members of own species. So therefore, they will be able to allocate resources equally. So example, some songbirds like white drum-shama, Indian black robin, Sri Lankan brown-capped warbler, they are songbirds. They are maintaining their territory.
What you heard is a Pretty Dear Call produced by Brown Cap Babbler.
When you look at the black robin, so this is a research carried out by our student. This is our campus faculty promises. So these are the territories of our black robin in our faculty. So you can see that during the this is non-breeding season and the breeding season. So same area they are utilizing, but expand their territory during the breeding season. So actually this is very easy to conduct this type of research because they are maintaining territory and also they have nice calls. So therefore, these calls we can use to mark the territories by using the playback method.
Here you can hear the White-Thumb Shama's different calls using during the territory defense. This video shows how the rhino mark their territory.
Especially when you come to the intraspecific competition, so they are individual same species, short supply resources, they are struggling. And sometimes if the resources are not in short supply, then competition occurs when the organisms seeking that resources nevertheless harm one or other in the process. When a resource is in short supply that used by one, it is not available to the other. That is we call exploitation. When an action or substances produced by one is directly harmful to the other, we call the interference. So what is territorial behavior and why is this behavior important for survival of a species? So many animals also they have the defendable territories. So this is the area that a given individual defend against intruders. So here actually provide stable access to resources, shelter, and sometimes secures mating opportunities. So in different type of animals, they have the different territory. So this particular songbird, here the two researchers, the research conducted by 2 years. So sometimes they are actually similar areas they are using, but sometimes according to the resource availability, they are moving. So when you look at this picture, you can see here there is a territory in 1 year. The next year, actually they choose another place. So according to the resource availability, they are changing the territory. There are plenty of examples we can have in the nature.
Please watch this video.
The gulls use these signals to carve out and hold small territories spaced just 4 to 5 meters apart across the rocky island. Territoriality begins when males arrive in spring, followed closely by their mates, returning to the same patch of rock they held in past years. Fights happen in spite of the signaling system. But fights are risky, as severe injury to a parent will doom their eggs and chicks. Over evolutionary time, selective pressure on individuals has favored communication over conflict, resulting in a signaling system that reduces violence in the breeding colony.
So when we move to the interspecific competition is similar to intraspecific competition. It occurs when individuals of different species utilize common resources that are in short supply, or if the resources are not in short supply, competition occurs when the organism seeking that resources nevertheless harm one or other in the process. So interspecific interaction in community, 3 types: competition between species, predation and symbiosis. We discussed all these things previously. So this phenomena explained by the Lotka-Volterra model. He explained the independently and simultaneously derived model to explain the outcome of competition between 2 species. So Lotka-Volterra model predicts 4 outcomes of the competition between 2 species. If you think X and Y, X always wins, Y always wins. Outcome depend on the initial density of each X and Y coexist. So you can see how he derived this model. If you want to get more details, if you like to get more details, you will be able to browse this website. So you can see his model. He explained the species 1 wins, 2 wins, competition can go either way, or coexistence. And another one explained by the grouse. I think you can remember under the niche lesson we discussed this one, competition exclusion principle. If 2 species share the same niche, the weaker competitor will be eliminated. So one species dominate competitor, niche overlap completely. You can see when you come to the Chittamala's example, because of the balance, Chittamala's actually give up his some part of his space. So therefore, this is the competitive exclusion. Competition release actually. So how these competition overcome? They are using different strategies. One is the character displacement. I think you can remember in Galapagos Islands, the finches, so they have different beak length and beak width. So they change their this character because they will be able to having a different type of fruits or the grains. So accordingly, they change their beak size and the width. This is actually adapted radiation in Galapagos finches. So another one is space sharing. So I think you can remember this particular lizard. They use the different levels of habitat to survive. So therefore they have their own niche. So they are not competing to each other. And when we move to the MacArthur's finding about the warblers species competition, so they naturally they are reduced the competition between them. So they are using a different height of the tree to utilize their food. And another one is tree climbing bird species exploit insect resources in different ways. You can see in this picture. So they are using the different places to find their own food. So when you move to the our country, this is the mixed species foraging flocks in knuckles. So you can see the different birds, they are utilizing the different height. So therefore they are not competing each other, they have their own niche. And this is another example in Sinharaja mixed species frogs. You can see they have their own niche in different levels. Not only for the animals but also for the trees, they have the gradients often represent a spectrum of stress tolerance and the competitive ability. You can see they have the, when you look at these zones, they have in different zones having different type of plants. So that is also how they are getting their own resources.
Okay, we will meet again from the next lesson, predation.